Look, I'm just going to head right into it. I don't know who I am outside of the life that I just left. And I'm not sure I ever did know who I was outside of that life. I guess I should. That's an abrupt cold open. Let me just let's just get back to basics here. All right, welcome back to the lab. I'm your host Bryce Prescott, and before I get into this, there's a couple things I just wanted to share, especially if you're one of my newer listeners and you're just coming in having listened to an episode or two. Please, please, please go back and listen to the back catalog. Not because I want to pad my numbers by any means, but because what I'm about to say in this episode today is going to land 10 times harder if you have the context of what I've shared and where my evolution has been over the course of these last 20 some odd episodes. We've talked about neuro-linguistic programming, about identity, about the buffer, about the sponsoring thought that's underneath every decision that you make. That's the framework. This episode is the lived experience of it all hitting right at once. And so if you want the full picture, it's there waiting for you. Now, that doesn't mean you will get nothing out of this episode if you don't have that context. I'm just sharing as a fellow traveler on this convertible rock that it will have a different punch if you have that context. And so for those of you who have been here and you know where I'm at, you've been with me through all this, I appreciate you more than I know how to express. You know, here's the thing that's been sitting with me lately, and I mean really sitting with me. It's in a way that has been following me around. It's been at the gym. It's been early mornings. It's been late nights. Sitting in my car, feeling isolated, and there's nothing left to distract me. I've been asking myself this question: who was I performing for? And before you go thinking this is some kind of, self-flagellation thing or a shame spiral, some kind of I was living a lie moment, it's not. I just want to be really clear about that because this isn't about guilt. This is about something far more interesting than guilt. It's about the identity that forms in the presence of other people, the version of you that exists because of the role that you play. Maybe it's the husband, the provider, the sister, the brother, the funny one, the reliable one, the strong one. Maybe you're the one that holds everybody together. You're the glue. These identities aren't fake. And don't get me wrong, they're real. You actually become them. But here's the question that nobody asks until they have to. And that's what's left when the audience is gone. That's where I'm at right now. I've talked openly on this show about my separation of 20 years, a person I deeply love and respect. There's no villain in that story. There's no dramatic betrayal that I can lean into. Just two people who grew in different directions, and eventually the distance became the truth we didn't want to acknowledge. And what I didn't anticipate, and what I'm not sure I was equipped for, was how much of my identity was built inside of that structure. See, I come home now, and it's quiet. And I mean genuinely quiet. There's no dogs barking. It's not just the absence of that old life, but the absence of conversation, the absence of that unconscious rhythm that I talked about that you build with another person when you've lived with them for years. It's the sounds of the way someone moves through a kitchen or the way another human being is just alive next to you in the same space, occupying, energetically present with you in that moment. That's gone. And in that quiet, things are really loud. I've shared this before, but I want to revisit it because I think it deserves more space than I actually gave it. I had a fear, and I talked about this in the last episode, a real tangible fear in my nervous system, cellular level fear that I emptied my tank. I spent everything I had on that old life that I loved too fully. I tried too hard. I gave too much. And that emptied this tank. And by the time that I get to that next version of my life, there's not going to be any gas left to build with. And I even shared how at night that thought is very, very loud. During the day, I can get momentum, I could work, I can create, I can laugh, I can connect, I can move. But at night, when the distractions are gone and there's nothing but me and myself, that fear is just sitting there waiting for me. And it's not depression, by the way. I want to make that clearly. It's grief. And grief is different. Grief is what happens when love has nowhere to go. And I still have a lot of love for so many parts of that old life, so many people in that old life, but it doesn't have a forwarding address anymore. So if you've listened to the show for any amount of time and you've heard me talk about the buffer, the space between the decision and the becoming, you've heard me talk about how that space will challenge you and how it will show you through your discomfort the signal towards every upgrade you need to be able to actually hold on to the life that you want. I've taught that from a pretty clean and clinical place. Here on this podcast, I've taught it to my coaching clients. I've taught it within my group coaching experience called The Lab. I've understood it conceptually. I believed it, and I even had real world lived experience. And I'm in it right now. And what's different is, well, everything is different when it's not a concept anymore, when it's your actual life. And here's something I haven't said on this show yet. And I'm saying it now because I think it matters and I'm committed to being honest. I think that's the only way through. For most of the run of this podcast, I had a built-in creative engine that I didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. I was surrounded. I had a family. I had a home full of people. There was constant conversation, not always deep and not always meaningful, but there was conversation nonetheless. And there was a rhythm to that, a noise that kept me in constant connection with my own thoughts. And this show, for the solo episodes, gave me a place to take my own thoughts outside of those conversations. I was filtering a constant stream of lived experience through the lens of what I know and what I teach, and I was turning it into the episodes that you've listened to and that you've heard here on this podcast. And that sort of stream of consciousness has changed. It's quieter now. My house is quieter. My daily life is quieter. And I've had to reckon with what that means for me, both creatively and personally. And what I've realized is this: I crave conversation more than I ever have. Not small talk. I've never been really one that was built for, hey, how's it going? Really great. How's the kids? That's not real conversation. I crave real conversation. The kind where two people are actually in it together. Where through the process of questioning and discovery and vulnerability, that something comes out, something gets discovered in that exchange that neither person could have found out alone. And I want more of that. I need more of that. The reason why I bring it up here is because you're going to start seeing more of that on this show, more interviews, more conversations with interesting people that they're doing real things, living honest lives, people that I find generally fascinating. Not just because I think it makes for good content, even though it does, but because right now in this season of my life, conversation is how I stay connected. Connected to ideas, connected to people, connected to myself, connected to creativity. And I figured it was worth being open about that, being honest about it, because I've always believed that the best thing that a leader can do is to tell the truth, especially while they're still inside of the experience. And as I shared last week and some of the challenges I faced, that's my new understanding of leadership, is that I get to share with you things even before I've resolved what those things mean. And so here's what I want to bring to you, because this just isn't my story. It's probably yours too. I've coached enough people to know that this particular fear, that fear of your emotional tank being empty to continue building, That fear that you spent everything on the thing that didn't work is one of the most common and least talked about fears that exists, especially in people who went all in. People who loved hard, who built hard, who tried, gave their all. Because you don't feel this fear if you held back. You feel it precisely because you didn't hold back. And I can say that in my former life, although I was imperfect and missed the mark a lot, I didn't hold back. I did try. I put forth effort. And so if you are in your own version of this, whether it's the end of a relationship or a business chapter that's closing or a version of yourself that you've outgrown and that you've had to leave behind, I want to talk to you for a second. The identity that you built inside of that structure, that thing, it wasn't a performance in a negative sense. It was real. You were really those things and that person. But here's what I've been learning slowly and sometimes painfully. The identity underneath all of those roles, the one that existed before the structure and before the title and before the relationship, the one that doesn't go anywhere, it just gets buried. And what this kind of transition actually does, if you let it, is to strip everything back down so that you can meet that person again. And that's not a loss. That's an archaeological excavation. And the fear that you don't have enough left. Like I said, go back and listen to the episodes on sponsoring thought. The one about whether fear or love is what's driving your decisions. Because that fear, the I spent it all, I have nothing left, fear is the fear talking. It's not truth. And fear is the worst narrator in your life. It's not objective. It's not accurate. It's scared. It's small. And it's a liar. The truth is this: you didn't spend the emotional capacity. It wasn't a finite thing. You built capacity. Every hard thing that you survived, everything you chose to stay and try, every moment you loved someone fully, even when it cost you everything, that didn't drain the tank. That is the tank. That's what the tank is made of. Every story has this moment. And it's not the climax of the story. The climax is loud and it's just dramatic and energetic. The climax demands your attention. You know when you're at the peak of the story. But what nobody warns you about is what comes after that. The chapter after the climax, the resolution. To use a metaphor, that's the longest paragraph in the story. The one that you have to sit inside of. The tension has resolved, but the weight's still there on your chest. You're not in crisis anymore. You've done the thing that you had been feeling called to do. You made the adjustments, you made the commitments, and you feel that relief and that release, but you're not okay yet either. You're just in it. To keep with the metaphor, you're just turning pages that feel heavy, even though nothing is happening in this part of the story. It's the character development arc. And that's where I am right now. That's where a lot of us are right now. And here's what I want you to understand: that quiet isn't emptiness. That's the story exhaling. And then there's this moment, and you'll know when it comes, where you feel the chapter end. It's not with a big bang, and it's usually with something quite small, sometimes embarrassingly small. A morning where your routine doesn't include the thought of what you lost anymore. A decision to take action on something that 6 months ago would have paralyzed you. a laugh that you have that comes from your gut and a place you haven't experienced in a long, long time. And it was just there. You weren't seeking it. That's when you know the chapter's over. And then there's white space. Just space. And I know that white space feels like nothing. It feels like you're behind, like the story has stalled, or that like everyone else is 3 chapters ahead of you and you're sitting here staring at a blank page. Here's the truth about blank pages. They are the only place in the entire story where anything is still possible. The chapters you've already written, those are fixed. Can't change them. They happened. But this right here, this moment, the blank space moment, nothing's been ruled out yet. Sky is the limit. Anything is possible. You are not empty. You are unwritten. And that's not a problem to solve. There's nothing to address there. That is just a powerful place. It's the most powerful place a person can stand. It's a place of pure creation. So don't rush the first sentence of this next chapter. Just make sure you write it. Because as I've said in the other episodes, you are the one holding the pen. My friends, thank you for being open to this part of the journey with me. I know that you tune into the lab to receive guidance and to think about things that would help you along your way. And as somebody that's committed to the whole process, not just the shiny parts, I want to make sure that I'm sharing the full experience in an appropriate way. There are certain things that I will never share with here because it includes other people's version of a story as well, and that's not acceptable for me. But I will share my own part of the story. And I will share that I do feel that fear. And I do recognize that I'm looking at a blank page in front of me. And I'm choosing to grab the pen. And I encourage you to do the same. So, of course, I will end this with an invitation. These are the type of things that we work through every single week in my group coaching experience called The Lab. Every Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, a group of like-minded, success-driven entrepreneurs and business professionals gather. And in a group coaching environment, I help each one of them and they help each other to not only achieve their best life, but to feel like they can get it. And then to egg each other on through accountability and training as we go forth and do it. And there's a way to see if you would be a fit to work with us there. You go to bryceprescott.com/thelabgroup. There's a story that's there that you can read to see if you're the type of person that would mesh with us in that group. There's an application and there's a way to see if you would be a fit for us. And I encourage you, if you've been following me along and are curious about that group, it takes very little time to go see if you'd be a fit. You very well may be connected and attracted to this part of my story because there's something deeper inside of you calling to the things that you're experiencing, knowing you are not alone, while at the same time recognizing that the best gift you could give yourself is a community of people that understand you. And I hope, as I've hosted this podcast and as I lead these coaching environments, that you see me as that person. My friends, thank you again for listening to The Lab. I'm your host, Bryce Prescott. And like I always say, until next time, take it a day at a time. I'll see you.